Hi there, I'm Stephanie Carmody. If you're in midlife and quietly wondering what's next, you're not alone. This podcast is a space for honest conversations about starting over, finding yourself again, and creating a life that actually feels like yours. We talk about faith, healing, identity, and everything in between. Just real life and what it looks like to begin again. Welcome to Second Act Sessions. Today's guest is someone whose work explores a theme we talk about a lot here on Second Act Sessions. The idea that life doesn't stop unfolding just because you hit midlife. Jane Costello is the internationally best-selling author of 15 novels, a two-time Romantic Novelist Award winner, whose books have been translated into 20 languages and selected for the Richard and Judy Book Club. Her newest novel, 40 Love, tells the story of a woman navigating an empty nest, stepping outside her comfort zone, rediscovering passion, finding friendship, and maybe even opening herself up to another shot at love. But what drew me to Jane wasn't just the book. It was her perspective. Her willingness to talk honestly about her personal story of loneliness, trying something new later in life, and learning that joy doesn't always come from productivity or achievement. Sometimes it comes from allowing yourself to play again. Today we're talking about reinvention, becoming a beginner, finding connection, and why midlife may actually be the invitation into something bigger. Well, Jane, welcome to Second Act Sessions. So lovely to meet you.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thank you for letting me come and chat to you.
My pleasure. And for those of you who don't know, we just spent like 5-10 minutes trying to figure out technological glitches. So we are here, and I'm so thrilled to be speaking with you. So you are an amazing, accomplished author, as I mentioned in my intro, and you have a new book out called 40 Love. And I'd love for you, for my viewers who haven't heard of it or haven't read it, please share a little bit about what this story is about, please.
Okay, so the story is about Jules, who is, she's a 45-year-old mom of one, and she's lived next door to a tennis club for many years, but is determined, you know, she's never set foot in it. It's not her thing at all. And she was put off sport for life when she was a teenager by this one particular incident, and hasn't picked up a tennis racket ever since then. Okay. But we meet her at the start of the book when her only daughter is about to set off on a gap year, and she's about to go backpacking around Europe. And Jules is obviously waving goodbye to her and is sort of left alone. And she's got all kinds of things going on at work. But for the first time in her life, she finds herself in the house by herself, and she really hates it. So in a bid to sort of try and sort of make her anxiety a little bit better, her friends drag her along to this tennis sort of group called Rusty Rackets.
Okay.
And she discovers sort of friendship, sisterhood. It opens up this whole new chapter in her life. And obviously, this being a rom-com, there's also a man involved in the form of a guy called Sam Delaney, who she last met 3 decades earlier when she was basically a kid. They've got a bit of history when they were teenagers. And he is now sort of displaying this killer forehand in direct view of her bedroom window. So it's a fun book, but it's also, you scratch the surface, and really this is a book about resilience, reinvention in midlife, and our great second act.
Right. And those are all perfectly fitting for my podcast. As I said earlier, when you guys approached me, I was like, oh my goodness, like, yes, this is so perfect, because I feel like so many of us are obviously navigating midlife. And I think Jules, your character in this book, is navigating midlife, but from the standpoint of being an empty nester, correct?
Yes, indeed.
And it's all how she's, I guess, navigating that, because I think a lot of people are empty nesters, and
yeah.
So tell me a little bit then where the inspiration from this story came from.
Well, there are a few things. I mean, I do play tennis now myself, but I also did not pick up a tennis racket until I was 45 years old. And I was walking, I was sort of sitting in watching one of my kids play this, do one of their lessons. This is my youngest. I've got 3 boys. And I sort of said to the woman next to me, God, I wish I'd learned this sport when I was younger, because it is quite a technical, sport. It's not something you could just, and she said, well, what's stopping you now? And the truth was there was loads of things stopping me. I've got 3 kids. I work full time. And there were all kinds of reasons for me not to go. But for some reason, I dragged one of my own friends along that weekend, and we went to a beginner's session. And fast forward several years later, I now play competitively in a league. And I'm heavily involved in the club. It's become an absolute obsession, really. And, it was just for me, I'd spent years and years, as so many of us do, looking after everybody else and doing stuff for other people. I mean, nothing's changed in that sense, but the kids are a little bit older. It just became this time where I just thought to myself, I need to put on my own oxygen mask before I start to go and look after everybody else, because I never did anything for myself. And this became the thing that I did for myself. And I absolutely love it. It's, highlight of my week type thing.
So then would you say that your experience in picking up that racket in midlife is part of what created the story for you? Was that like your inspiration, or do you already had the story sort of in your mind? Do you know what I mean? Like, was this the reason why you wrote this novel?
I definitely have wanted to write a novel about tennis for a while. Mm-hmm. But obviously you're asking sort of questions to yourself I've written, this is my 16th book, so I've written lots of novels beforehand. Yep. Mm-hmm. So, I'm thinking, should I write it, about a book could be written about a tennis pro or somebody, somebody who's, playing at the highest level. But I really wanted this to be a book full of messages about women in their 40s, ordinary women in their 40s, and this sort of universal thing we all go through at this time of our lives. And just, I loved the idea of reinvention, really. The tennis had just, it is no exaggeration to say that it changed my life. No question about that. Obviously I'm an author. I've been an author for 21 years, ever since my first son was born. And much as I love this is my absolute dream job. It's quite a sort of lonely profession in some ways, because I was previously a journalist. I was in a busy newsroom all day. I'm quite a sociable person. Whereas being an author, you sit in front of a computer and the only company you have is your characters. So the tennis became this, this time of, this few times a week where I would just be with these great bunch of women and just play in a way that I hadn't done since I was a kid. And I love it.
That's great. I think that's a great point, because I know we talk about reinvention, right? And I think people can reinvent themselves at any point in their life, but I feel like primarily in midlife is when we're seeing the bulk of it happen, and obviously in your case as well. So what have you learned, like, by picking up the tennis racket and then obviously continuing, to write this novel about reinvention?
That it's never too late to do so. I mean, that is that's the main thing. You think in so many ways, you think you get to this stage in your life, is you feel like it's set. That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you. It's set. But actually, there are so many new doors you can open for yourself. And this unquestionably did for me. It's given me so much. And I think, obviously this is a book about tennis, but you don't have to be into tennis at all to read this book. The sort of the messages and all the storyline in it, it really could have been sort of anything, really, if you know what I mean. But actually, in my case, obviously the tennis just provides this sort of framework for the stories about these friendship groups and about family, about empty nesting. And, there's this, she goes through this period in her working life as well, which I think a lot of people go through, a lot of women go through, and they reach a certain stage and the storyline in it is that her company is being restructured, and she's quite a senior manager. She's a buyer for a sort of anthropology type store, national store. And it's been bought out and it's all being restructured. And she's at this point in her life where she's like, right, well, if my job goes, I do not know what I would do, because she's geographically settled in a particular place. There's no other comparable jobs. And, you know, she's kept awake at night by all this sort of perimenopausal anxiety, Googling things like, how much would I earn as an Uber driver? And, you know, where your mind goes to all these places.
My mind has gone there. I'm laughing at everything you're saying right now. Like, totally.
Yeah, I think a lot of people go through a lot of sort of changes at this time of their life, and not, you know, not necessarily ones that they want. So yeah, it covers all of that, and also grief as well, because the reason she's a single mom is that the love of her life died 6 years earlier. And so that's why she's sort of been raising her daughter as a single parent. And so, you know, there is this sort of big love story in it as well.
I love that. I love that. So then how would you describe this book, or how is it different compared to your other novels, your 15 other novels? You know what I'm saying? Like, was this one, did this impact you differently, would you say?
Well, my first 10 novels were all rom-coms written under the name Jane Costello. And obviously I started writing those 21 years ago, and they were all about women in their sort of late 20s, finding love for the first time. And, you know, they all had the kind of, you know, sort of jobs where they didn't have kids in the main. And so they were very much your sort of traditional rom-com, you know, that we think of in that genre. And then I wrote another type of book under a pseudonym, Catherine Isaac, which were more sort of emotional love stories. But I came back to writing rom-coms because I reached this stage in my life. I reached my late 40s when I first started writing them. And I just got the idea I love a good rom-com. Here's the thing. And I was looking around thinking, why is there nothing written for women my age? And the thing is, there was so much material. You know, you get to our age and you've got perimenopause, you've got teenage kids, you've got, ex-husbands or whatever. You know, a lot of us have lived a lot of life by this stage. And it just felt to me like there was this whole load of material. And I just wanted to write a proper, good, romantic, but really funny book. So I wrote my first, the one that preceded this, which is called It's Getting Hot in Here. And that's about this twice divorced mom of two who, you know, in the thick of perimenopause. And it was just so much fun to be writing about, you know, all the things I was sort of going through.
And I'm sure a lot of your friends are going through.
Yeah, and just make it really reflect.
And relatable.
Rather than me trying to sort of put my, you know, pretend I'm a 28-year-old, which, you know, all that's gone. You know, I loved writing those books, but those books are gone now. I really wanted to just write something from the heart and that would make women sort of my age really, really laugh and really relate to it.
Do you think you'll continue to write future books with sort of that audience in mind, from like the midlife 40 plus? I'm
sort of open to, because I've written all kinds of things.
Right.
So I'm always open to new projects, and I sort of wouldn't rule anything out. But I know I have unquestionably loved these books, and the reception it's got has been really fantastic as well. So yeah, if people want them, I will absolutely continue writing them.
Oh my God, I love that. I love that. But like I said, I think this story for me feels like so relatable, as you know, as you were discussing, and like honestly, like the perfect summer read for anyone who's looking for a good rom-com novel to get into. And I think a lot of us are kind of looking for that on screen. You're right. Like, they're not making great rom-com movies anymore, I feel like, or if they are, they're not relatable to our age group, right? 40 plus. And so it's great that you are writing novels that we can relate to and have hope and inspiration. And granted, I know it's, a fictional story, but it's not. So many of us are actually living exactly what your main character, Jules, is going through. You know what I mean? And obviously it resonates with you too, because you're walking older and going through things. And like you said, picking up something new in midlife, whether it's a sport, a job, a hobby. So I feel like that's such a great, just story for all of us to read and feel like maybe I see a little bit of myself in that book. Do you know what I mean? Or in that character.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. Some of the thing is, I've talked a lot on my sort of social media about the whole thing of rom-coms and how, it's very easy to sort of, nothing is more dismissed more than a romance novel, in terms of literature. And I think people fall into the sort of trap of believing because something is easy to read, that it is easy to write. And it's, but romance in particular has had such a hard, had such a bad rap, for the simple reason that it is predominantly read and written by women. Crime and thrillers do not get anything like this sort of bad rap. Whereas, if you tell somebody you write romance, it's kind of like, oh, do you think you'll ever write a proper book type thing?
That's horrible.
Yeah.
That's awful.
No, I mean,
in
certain circles, there's no question. Whereas, this has been the sort of traditional thing because it's written for women and it taps into women's emotions. It's sort of been, it's been dismissed. But actually, some of my favorite books of all time fall into this genre. There is some absolutely fantastic, and at a time when sort of children's enjoyment of reading is apparently, according to various surveys, at an all-time low. We need to be showing our kids what it is like to be reading a page turner and loving it and just finding pure enjoyment and joy from a book. And that's what I aim to do in mine. I want readers to sink into those pages and just love spending time with those characters. So that is very much the type of book that I want to read and want to write.
Likewise. And I love when the books like yours hopefully get made into movies because I don't know, I do, like I said, I feel like for example, like all those off-campus books that are huge and they just came out with the show. Yes, but these are college kids, but even like Gen X people like myself were obsessed with it. But to your point, we don't really see a lot written about our life and our age now. So I think it's great that you are offering that to women such as myself and to all my listeners and viewers because, right, I think it is needed and is necessary because I don't know, I feel like for my generation, I'm Gen X, but I feel like no one told us anything. No one prepared us for any of this. The perimenopause, the menopause, all the symptoms. It's nice to, see it reflected in a novel, right? And I'm not saying she's going through all that, but it's about beginnings and starting over and trying something new, which is just such a breath of fresh air.
And when you think about it, it's only kind of 5 years ago. I mean, just talking about what you've just said about, nobody told us about this. You're so right. It's only 5 years ago that we really, we weren't talking about menopause at all, really. And then things have really sort of changed. It's now part of the dialogue. It's all over. I don't know what your social media is like, but when I go onto Instagram, it is just full of stuff about the menopause. And that is absolutely brilliant because, this is something that affects 50% of the population. And so it's right that we are finally, talking about it, that it's finally getting the funding to be studied properly in ways that it hasn't been beforehand.
Well, that's the other thing. I feel like there's a lot of questions and not many people have answers. And that's what's frustrating. And on Instagram, to your point, all you'll see are like ads and ads for supplements for menopause. And this, it's like, how many things are we supposed to be taking? HRT and this and that. Take them all. I mean, but it's crazy. So there's a lot of information, but not a lot of direction, I feel like, and like guidance on that. So, but those are the topics that the people this age, 40s and above, we are having because we're all navigating it together,
Exactly. And to be honest, that is partly, I talked earlier about the sense of sort of sisterhood that there is in this sort of tennis club that I joined. And that is what I really hope to depict in not just this book, but in all of, my midlife books, because one of the joyous things I've found about getting to this age is, those kind of lifelong friendships that you've had. I just think, you really get to this age, and if you've been through stuff, which we all have, whether
we're all going to,
whether that is relationships or health or whatever. One of the big lessons I have learned at this time of my life is just how solid as a rock my friends are, and that is just something I really, really wanted to explore and depict. And I wanted to sort of turn you see a lot of drama in which, TV, on movies or whatever, in which female relationships are depicted as, there being conflict or, there being bitchiness or whatever. That is not my experience of relationships with my friends anyway. So I just really wanted to that was one element of midlife that I wanted to pick out and it really explore how much fun it is if you've got your girl gang.
Well, and I also think, to your point, and we talk about new beginnings and reinvention. I mean, I'm assuming Jules had her set group of friends, but as she joined this club, she made new friends, right? And that's something I feel I've been experiencing in my life. And my second act is a lot of friendships have gone. I think personally, I feel like God ripped them out of my life. They could not go with me on my journey, but I've been so blessed with new friendships, which I think is something not many people speak to. I think a lot of people assume that once you have your set group of friends, those are your friends for life. Mm-hmm. And, it's so hard meeting new friends. And for me, it's been the opposite. I've been blessed with so many new friendships that I'm just so shocked by and so incredibly fulfilled by. So have you experienced that in your life? And obviously I think it sounds like some of that is in the book as well.
Yeah, well, it's a bit of both really. So in my own life, I have got this sort of core friendship group who, I'm friends with people I went to school with, some people I worked with. I actually, my particular story is I dragged, my old school friend who I was, friends with when I was 13 years old, along to the tennis club with me at the time. So we joined together.
I love it.
And it's amazing, we then, both of us, just discovered this whole other friendship group. And one of the really lovely things about it, actually, while we're on the subject of new friends, the thing about it is, there are women there there are girls playing that we play with us who are 15 years old, and there are women playing who are 80 years old. And this entire group of people, it's really inspiring to see, to be in a group that just covers such this intergenerational
I was just going to say intergenerational. Yeah. My pastor actually has been speaking on that, and it's something our church is really active in doing. And you can learn so much from women younger than you, women older than you. And I think it's great to have friends at different ages, as do I. I have millennial friends. I have some Gen Z. I have my Gen Xers. But I think that's such a great point that, we can have friends at all different ages.
Exactly. So yeah, in the book, it is a similar. I mean, it's not all based on my life story. Far from it. It is just.
It's really inspired.
There's a few steamy scenes in there as well. No, it's in it. She's got this core group of she's got these friends basically, but because she's kind of thrown everything into both her work and being a parent. And she did that after her husband died. She was one of these moms who she says at one point, this felt like the least I could do for a fatherless daughter. But she was, she was always busy and always she was the mom who, had all the sleepovers and organized the cinema nights and all this kind of stuff. She did all that to stop herself, having to just sort of stop and think and really allow her grief to, overtake her. And then, of course, when her daughter goes, she is left with just the work. And, you know, and she really struggles with it. So yeah.
I think a lot of people struggle with that. It's like sort of kind of loneliness, but also like, now what do I do? Whether, like you said, you're empty nester or divorce. You know, for me, a divorce, and I'm having to change my entire life. And, you know, and you said earlier, like, we didn't plan on this. We didn't expect this, but we just got to navigate it, right? Like, we're all going to experience trials and tribulations, hardships, as you said, whether it's a divorce or illness. I mean, that's part of life, but it's great that authors such as yourself are writing about that, you know, and really humanizing what we're going through, because I think at the end of the day, we want to feel less lonely and maybe, you know, have people be understood, right? Be understood by others. And I think that's great that you're writing about really what we're all going through right now. And as we're like kind of figuring it out, like stumbling around, you know?
Exactly. Because I know very few people who've got to this age and not had some kind of major life event, if not two or three, you know, things are thrown at you. You know, the fact is we have to navigate this sort of stuff. We just don't get a choice. So exploring how people deal with that and the various ways that they handle that is something I'm very much interested in as a writer.
Yeah, no, I think that's great, because I think a theme also is what within you, and I think also in Jules' character is like that loneliness element, right? Like, okay, and what do we do about that, right? And I think, you know, obviously for you, it was trying something new. It could be a new job, a new hobby, but I think that's where the friendships really help, you know what I'm saying, and help navigate that loneliness feeling. I mean, is that what you experienced, would you say? Like, did your friends help, or was writing like a comfort for you in helping with any sort of loneliness you've experienced?
Yeah, I mean, the thing with, I guess, you know, I've always been good at maintaining friendships, but there's a difference between sort of, I mean, you know what it's like at this time of life. You go to your girlfriends, right? Let's all get a date in the diary. And everyone's like, oh God, June's a bit of a nightmare. And, you know, and then you're looking ahead and you've got 5 people trying to coordinate things.
Oh, yeah. So, that could take months to land on one date that works for everyone. It's so frustrating.
Very different. It's very, very different from being in, you know, I used to be in a newsroom. I sat in a features department at first, surrounded by a lot of people whose company I really enjoyed. It was always busy, quite high stress, but you know, the upside of that is that you were never bored. You always had someone to talk to.
Right. There's always like stimulation.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, so I've always stayed in touch with those people and various other people, old school friends, people I've met along the way, you know. But there is a difference between that and having, you know, set sort of times when you just know you are going to turn up and people will be there, and you can just and it's easy. It's just easy. You don't have to do any arranging. It's just easy. They are there, and you know, and so that was why tennis really sort of worked for me, you know. I still do all the other stuff, still sort of go out for drinks with all those people and stuff. But it's that sort of routine and knowing that a couple of times a week, that's what I'm going to be doing with various people I definitely needed it, you know, as busy. And the thing is, you know, when you've got young kids, even if you work from home, as lots of us do, you are so busy, you know, you just never stop. But I think that the difference was finding something that I was doing that I loved, rather than just, you know, everything was about the kids. You know, they reached an age where they found their thing. They are old enough to go off and do their thing with their own friends. So now, you know, this was the opportunity.
Well, and I think that's, you know, something that made me think of that is like so many times, like I'm not a mom, but I mean, I know a lot of moms almost lose themselves in their children. You know, they want to be the best mom, take care of the kids, rightfully so. But then when you're an empty nester, or when something happens, you look around and be like, who am I? What do I like? What are my passions? Like we kind of put ourselves on the back burner. And I did that in my marriage. It was all about my ex. And I had to kind of come out of that and do the healing and be like, well, okay, but who is Stephanie? What is she like? What are her passions, hobbies, joys? I mean, is that something you've ever personally had to deal with? Or, I'm assuming maybe you've seen some friends sort of kind of navigate that.
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, to be honest, I think anybody who, certainly friends who I've got kids with, we would previously only, we would get together sort of watching the kids play football or whatever, so it very much was them. And, lots of people I know have been through divorce, I have myself, and you do have to, obviously it's a really traumatic thing. Nobody wants that. That's not what you want when you go into it. Nobody thinks it's going to happen because, you're so in love when it first happens. But, so you do have to sort of reestablish yourself and reestablish this new, how your life is going to be. And at the beginning, you're sort of crawling your way through and feeling your way and trying to, work out what this is going to look like. But if you can sort of be kind to yourself and, say, I'm going to do something I really love and unapologetically, actually make a positive out of this, which is basically, do something that I wouldn't necessarily have done previously.
Right.
That's got to be a good thing.
Right. So then what have you learned? So obviously you mentioned your divorce or went through a divorce and kind of, I'm sure you're in your second or third act now. What have you learned in navigating your second act, as I call it?
God, I still feel like I'm still learning, I'm still learning.
I think we all are.
I mean, I don't feel like I've got it all sorted out, but I think I know how to prioritize and I put, certainly things in perspective. I mean, one small example of this that I actually have written about in the book is, I had this whole thing when I first started playing tennis that I was not going to wear a tennis skirt because I don't like my legs. And, didn't like my legs even when I was in my 20s. I mean, God, now when I look, I'm like, what? And I was like, I'm just, I'm not going to because they're not, they don't look like Cindy Crawford's enough for me type thing. And, I just went through this whole thing and then we went on this girls, we're all in off, we were in our 40s at the time, women's only holiday, this coaching holiday to the south of Spain, absolute heaven, big bunch of women, lots of rosé wine, lovely coaching. And it was all absolutely gorgeous, loads of sunshine, but it was like 30 degrees, Celsius. I'm just trying to think what that is in Fahrenheit.
I never know how to convert that. It was hot.
Really, really hot. So I was forced to wear this skirt. And I just put this skirt on and I had this sort of almost sort of biblical conversion. I was like, oh my God, why have I been worrying all these years about, and it was like, this is actually fine. This is great. And why have I thought I look terrible? I don't look terrible. I look fine.
Well, I think as women, we're so hard on ourselves, first of all, right? I think historically, we've just always been that way.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
have anyways.
And so it was really, that was sort of a bit of a personal journey, and it's a similar sort of thing goes in the book because we are all, we have been certainly, I too am Gen X and, the 90s were not easy on us, were they? All those magazines that would circle cellulite for people on they were really tough. And a lot of us have come away with this body image that is so, you've still got the hangover, haven't you? No matter how much body positivity there's been over the years, it's hard to shake, that is. And, I did, at the time, when I put that skirt on, and I just thought, this really is absolutely, why have I been doing this? And, so there's no going back now.
And I feel like we're always so hard on ourselves. And meanwhile, I bet your friends are like, what are you talking about? Your legs are fine. Right?
Exactly.
Like there's nothing wrong with them. We think there is.
I'm not kidding myself. I'm never going to, it's just sort of
it's crazy.
It's like, who are you holding this up against? And I suppose I just, I don't have daughters. I've got sons. I've got 3 sons. But if I had a daughter, I would be saying to them, don't be so ridiculous.
Yes.
Your body is beautiful. It works and blah, 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 blah. So I just thought, these are the messages I would be giving younger women. So I need to buy into this. So I do.
I love that. So then what's next for you in your journey? Are you already working on another book or have an idea for another book? Like what's next for you?
I'm kicking around some ideas and talking about it with my editor and stuff. So I can't really say any more about it at this stage because it needs to sort of get the okay from those people. But
of course,
I've written because I'm always sort of writing or thinking of I've got a whole load of ideas that are sort of ready to get going. But I've been doing so much promotion for 40 Love, which I've loved doing.
Yeah, that's great.
So I'm sort of quite looking forward to getting back to the writing.
Are you going to primarily focus on the rom-com genre still, or are you going to mix it up, do you think?
I mean, I definitely, I would like to mix it up, over the coming years, unquestionably. The Catherine Isaac books that I wrote, I've had some, real success with them. I wrote, there's a couple of them out. No, in fact, my first Catherine Isaac book came out in the US actually, but it was a few years ago, called You, Me, Everything. And that did really, really well. It got published in like 26 languages and, it did sort of, it sort of opened sort of doors that, and parts of my career that were really interesting. So I definitely wouldn't rule that out. Having said that, I love the rom-coms. I love writing them. I love the reception. I love, when I meet readers, I do lots of events. I really love, I really, really love meeting readers. And I love it when people say, oh, I was laughing, you made me laugh out loud. That to me is the best thing that an author can hear, because it's like you've made this connection, it's magical.
Right. So where can people learn more about you, but also where can they buy 40 Love?
Well, 40 Love is available in stores across America. It's published by Zibby Books, and so you can get it from Zibby's website, or it's available from all the stores, Barnes and Noble, and all the big ones basically. So anywhere you like, it's available. And they can learn more about me. There's my website, janecostello.com. But I'm also probably on the social media. It's Instagram is the one that I'm probably most active on. So, it'd be amazing to have a follow on there. And I always do respond to people. So it'd be lovely if they
stop by. Yeah. I'll make sure I link all of your information in the show notes when the episode airs. But I will say, everyone, run and go get this book. I think it's a perfect summer read. You're going to enjoy it. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it, Jane. You're lovely, and I can't wait to read more of your books.
Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you ever so much.
My pleasure. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. Have a great day, and God bless. Thanks so much for listening. Be sure to subscribe to Second Act Sessions on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you tune in. And if today's episode resonated with you, consider leaving a review. It helps more than you know and makes it easier for others to find these stories and start their own second act.